Hello, hello, hello. Okay, now people come trickling in. I was worried for a second that the announcement didn't go out. But it looks to be working. Hi, CK. Did you have any problems joining the Discord? For some reason, we recently had today a lot of problems with Sledgehammer. So if you might let me know. And I gave the our member role to you manually. So it would be nice if you could let me know if you had any issues there. Hello, the Mudlarker. Nice to see you here. RSI 7, Timber Sky, Freedom Frog. As you can see, Oliver OnChain, the discussion is going to be the topic of today. I believe this might be. Can you sign your role due to lack of permission? Please directly contact the staff member. Okay. Yeah, I will have to get that sorted. That's weird. It should have been working yesterday, so yeah, I'm just gonna make sure that if anyone wants to join, I'll give them the role manually. But yeah, thanks for sharing that. Yeah. Hello there. Who invited you up on stage right now? Hello?
Getting it sorted.
Okay. The usual, right? Hello, Silence. Thanks for joining us. Behave, right? Alice in Wonderland, the manga. So, I mean, probably will take a couple more minutes to get all set up, right?
Yeah, I'm just waiting on
the link for because yeah, it's also going to be Matt Hatter has to speak on 2 different platforms at the same time, so that has to be set up, and also someone else is missing. And as you can see, I'm not Mr. Oliver, so
How's my volume?
Sounds fine to me. Oliver's here. Captain Oliver. Hello there. Okay, let me bring you up.
Okay.
Hi there. How you doing?
Hey, how you doing, guys?
All fine.
Okay. So let me just make sure that your sound is coming through to the YouTube audience. Okay. Say something real quick.
Something.
Okay. Yeah, your sound is coming through. We're good.
Good.
All right. Perfect. Your volume is a little low. Let me just increase that. But so what's going on with the link that I just sent you? You said you could not toggle your camera off. Did you figure it out?
Not yet, but I'm trying to. Bear with me.
Usually you have to, I believe you also have to toggle it off when you log on, I believe. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'll have a little look.
Yeah.
Okay, on the YouTube side, the sound is all good, so I'm ready when you guys are ready. I mean, it's fine. We can figure it out on the fly. Oh, he's calling in. Well, now we might have sound coming from 2 places, though, to be honest.
Worst case scenario, I can just stay in the Discord. That's fine.
Okay, yeah. Let's just keep it in the Discord because your sound is coming through pretty clearly. Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, fine.
Alrighty. Then I'm going to jump off the stage and leave you guys to it.
Alrighty.
Okay, let's get it.
Oliver, how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. So you go by Mad Hatter?
I do go by Mad Hatter.
Okay.
Yes,
perfect.
indeed. Yeah, I mean, let's jump straight into it. I know that you wanted to get straight into the meat of it all, and it's going to be an interesting conversation. So thank you for coming in. I know there's going to be a ton of people listening right now that are familiar with you. One of the reasons I reached out is that you're quite a polarizing character, so I thought this would make an interesting conversation. And I've not always been the biggest advocate for the way you've approached your videos or protocols. I've been fairly critical in my time in terms of how you've approached things. So I thought, why not get you in, sit you down, and just have a conversation with you about that, and kind of chew through why it is you do what you do, and perhaps
that's the best way to do it.
Exactly. See, perhaps what ramifications of that there are, and just get your thoughts on things. So I suppose let's take it back to the beginning. At what point did you think this is the way I wanted to go with my social media content to create the following that I needed?
That's an interesting one because it takes me back. So my start in social media coincides with my start on YouTube. So I didn't really care for social media at all past, I don't know, maybe the times of High Five. You remember High Five?
I do not.
Okay, that's a while ago. So that was before Facebook. And once Facebook hit, that was like the last time I was posting pictures on social media. And after that, I was like, wait, I don't really understand this gig. The idea of feeding your life as a source of entertainment for people and for free didn't make sense to me. Because in real life, I could form, deep and positive relationships with people. So if I can do that in real life, I don't need it in virtual. So I could not really make it make sense beyond the vanity of just, hey, look, I look good. I'm looking good right now. I'm at the beach with my girl, boom, like some BS like that, right? So I just got off social media and I just went about, trying to win in real life. Okay, so now fast forward to 2020. I have a business that I'm thinking, I figured it out. I finally got the one that's gonna blow up because I had a Airbnb portfolio. And in 2020, that went from 100 to 0. Like, instead of 0 to 100, it was in reverse. It was from 100 to a 0 overnight, right? This is not something I thought was possible. I mean, the tail risk, like, the standard deviation for that is crazy, So anyway, once that happens, like any, self-respecting millennial, I went and got on my PlayStation and proceeded to play Fortnite for the next 6 months because I was semi-depressed. Yeah. And but if there's one thing that's more depressing than watching your business go to 0 is 13-year-olds stunting on you in Fortnite, and just it doesn't make sense. It doesn't work. So yeah, after 6 months of that, I was like, okay, let's go back to the drawing board. Let's figure out how to win in this new world, right? And this is a world of digital. This is a world where the most anti-fragile infrastructure is virtual. It's online. And I was already into finance. I was following everything regarding the development of crypto, Bitcoin, and the blue chips. So I had a pretty good understanding of macro and how money was moving digital in a real scarce way where it was real money, not just currency. So that was already clear to me that, okay, this is the future. So now if that's the future, if you build a business in the virtual world, well, you need to market it in the virtual world. You need to build relationships in the virtual world. You need to build communities in the virtual world. So everything then got me to the point of, okay, YouTube is the best entry point, and I happen to have the skill set to be able to perform well in front of a camera. So if you combine that with the capacity to build businesses, and you have enough charisma to build a community, well, now you have the opportunity to potentially bootstrap something that could have some legs, right? So first, it was about learning YouTube. So I spent like 6 months studying YouTube, building the studio here. And when I say 6 months, like that was prior to me putting out a video. So this goes to show you that nothing I do is by mistake. I don't do things like by mistake. I calculate everything that I do. And when I studied YouTube for that long, it was simply to get the quality that I could endorse. So if I cannot endorse my own videos when I watch them, if I don't like them, I cannot be satisfied. So it took a long time to learn cameras, to learn sound, to learn all of the infrastructure I have right here to broadcast this on multiple, infrastructures. And then you have to understand, clickbait, algorithm, how to gain views, how to retain views. Like, it's a whole system. And this is the reason why it's, in the end, even though the barrier of entry is low, it's still a very difficult thing to achieve. So I'll stop there so you can give me a follow-up.
Yeah. So, you put a ton of work in, you put a ton of studying in, you want to learn the space. I wonder what clicks in your mind that then puts you in a position where you decide going after protocols as vehemently as you do and creating the content in the manner that you do to polarize is going to be the way forward. There's more than one way to skin a cat. There's more than one way that you could have approached this, but you made a conscious effort, an executive decision to really go at people. Why?
So basically that gives me a chance to continue the story arc. So when I first started I started in January of 2021, studied for 6 months, started to drop my first videos in June of 2021. When I first started, my first channel was covering AMC and GME, okay? And that community, my strategy was not polarizing towards the community, but the enemy was the stock market. So all of the antics and the jokes that I was making, they were directed towards massive institutions that could not respond. So the comedic element was always there from day one, just because that's who I am as a person. But then to make it controversial, like, people like when things are a little controversial. They like when people go on a limb or find themselves on the edge. But if it's one way and no one responds back, well, it's a bit more engaging, but it's not optimal engagement, right? So these big Wall Street institutions, they could not respond to me. So if I'm making fun of Jim Cramer and calling him, I don't know, a coke rat because he's probably on cocaine when he's making his calls, well, Jim Cramer is never going to respond. So that doesn't make for a good back and forth, right? Because, like I was saying recently on the live stream I had with the guys from Seifu, which we'll get to in a minute, I was telling them that this is TV. YouTube is the new TV, right? People don't have to do things on YouTube. For example, you cultivate your community inside of Discord, and it doesn't have a feature for video where you have to show your face and you have to perform for your public via this lens of the camera. Once you go in front of this lens, you're on TV. If you're on TV, you have to be entertaining to some level. And if you choose to not be entertaining, that's fine. It's just that now you're going to have to be in a different lane. But in general, the reason why people go on TV is to be entertained / informed / something else. But entertainment is always key. It's always a key ingredient in the whole thing. So I don't think that can be understated. But kind of like, to still answer your question here, it's like when I started, I leaned into a community, not antagonizing that community, but there was an enemy to attack. Did that for like a few months. And my conclusion was, after growing to like, I don't know, over 10K subscribers in a very short period of time, because of the engaging nature of my content, my conclusion was, why are we talking about market reform in the stock market when there's a revolution happening in the crypto market? Because you don't need reform when you have the opportunity to start a revolution. Reform only helps those who are already in power. To take power from those who are in power, you need the revolution, and that's where crypto comes in.
Sure. In terms of your own personal revolution in the space, do you think there is more power in tackling that with, anger, insults, difficult to digest pieces of content that some might find polarizing, or is there more power in doing that by way of like a conversation in which you can have it out, but you can find some common ground? Because one of the criticisms I have of your content is that often it fails that common ground for me. And we are going to talk about Safer, so I'll bring it up now. And I think what's fascinating about your relationship with Safer and your relationship with Bryan Legend in particular, and the manner with which you went about wanting to expose, what you say is, and what you feel and what we now know is behavior that is dodgy and is designed to pull the wool over people's eyes and is designed to take people's money effectively. He needed an anti-hero in his world that he could lean on that was going to create a bigger name for him. And in a way, you came along and almost created that anti-hero. And in a weird twist of fate almost, what he was in particular able to do with his community is lean on the content that you were making and create an even stronger community his side that would draw even more people in, because he could simply point across the river and say, look at that person, all they're going to try and do is throw grenades in our direction. They're the enemy.
That is a very interesting assessment. But to that, I would say, first of all, I was not the only one making content against Seifu and Bryan Legend. That's number one. So I'm one of many, and I have a particular style. But what you say is very interesting, because it is true that he was able to leverage me as his anti-hero and say, look, they're trying to come after us. But to that, it's like, what is the alternative, right? If we're not going to use a mosaic of strategies to expose the Bryan Legend types, what is the alternative?
I agree with that, and it's a good pushback. What is the alternative? There are, like I said, many ways to skin a cat, and I guess the alternative is having conversations. One of the things we have been accused of tirelessly here, in fact, is that we were too soft on Bryan when we had the 15 minutes to speak to him, or we created this space so that we could give him a platform in particular, for example, to shill his project. The irony of that is, in their community, we were very much seen as the fudders. We were banned from the community. We weren't allowed to have a voice. And the only reason this space exists is because we wanted a safe place for people to discuss. I just wonder if your alternative perhaps created an environment whereby there was a lot of polarizing arguments that created a bit of aggression, and that aggression then turned into some of your community members who were with you at the beginning being caught in the firing line of the content that you were putting out there and being wrongly labeled. And I confess, I got into many conversations with a ton of people that came from your community, and I haven't always conducted myself cordially or accordingly, because I've allowed it's an emotive subject, so I've allowed my emotions to kind of creep up. And it's a learning curve for us, and that's my bad, of course. But they got unfairly caught up in your mist. And how do you then manage what you're doing for content, and then the community that kind of sits behind you that wants to jump onto that agenda and wants everybody else to follow suit because they can see what a lot of people can't?
Well, look, the way I look at this is there is a burden of performance, or at least a responsibility of the viewer. If my content captures your attention, because you have to understand, there's a lot of people on YouTube that are, so first of all, 90% of the YouTubers that cover crypto are just marketing vectors for scam projects. I don't think that can be understated. And I'm being very generous when I say 90%. I think it's much higher. So let's start there. So the environment is just, for lack of a better word, is just fucking shit, right? So all of these people are willing to take money in some shape or form in order to promote scams, while knowing that there are scams, or they're useful idiots that don't know better, but they're still gonna promote the scammers. And then they're gonna act like, when everything goes to shit, they're gonna act like, well, I didn't know, I just believed the way you believe, except the YouTuber gets some kind of compensation or privilege position by being the marketer. So these people cannot then turn around and act like, well, you know, I was Mr. Nice Guy, but you happen to lose all your money. And for that, I'm sorry. It's like, well, let's move on to the next thing. Okay. Well, on the other side, excuse me, you have me who is cutting through the noise, because you have to remember, I am on YouTube. I need to find a way to cut through the noise because there's like thousands of channels covering crypto. Why would you listen to me, not one of the other 10,000 channels that are out there? Well, you're going to listen to me because I'm different. You're going to listen to me because I'm more engaging, because I make you feel something, because it's more entertaining, because there's drama. So you need to find a reason to stay in front of the TV. We are on TV, and that can, again, not be understated. So now that you hear glued in front of the TV watching the drama, because that's a function of human nature, right? This is not something that me, Oliver, created. I am leaning into what humans have shown me that they are. So I'm not trying to change them. I'm just meeting them where they are. You like drama? Okay, cool. So let's do that. But now that I have your attention, I now have the opportunity to share my opinion, my perspective, my point of view. And what do I do with that? I take that very seriously in the sense of, yo, there is scamming happening here. Here's a scammer. Here's a scam project. Oh, and by the way, I have a track record. I did not just do this once. I did it multiple times. Go look at the history. How many times did I call out projects and people that took your money and projects that went to zero? At some point, the proof is in the pudding. The body of work speaks for itself. So if now people, just to conclude, if now people are not able to go beyond the emotional barrier of entry, right, to the intellectual, like, to the intellectual, I don't know how to even say this. I don't want to diminish, like, I don't know, I want to disrespect people, but it's like, yo, you have to be able to see it, especially when it's on repeat.
I agree. And I agree with your assessment about a lot of the YouTubers in this space. And I said as much in the conversation that we had surrounding Seifu not that long ago, in that a lot of these YouTubers who were standing, you know, next to Bryan, for example, when he was wearing his nice shiny chain that cost $35,000 of other people's money, they were the ones grinning and enjoying a free holiday and should have been asking tough questions then. It's no good backpedaling at this stage unless you're going to give something credible. Yep. I agree with that assessment. I absolutely do. And, you know, for what it's worth, I also agree that there was a ton of people doing good work in the background in terms of the research that they were able to give to yourself, and in terms of the findings that they were able to collate, put into your community, and allow you to use, obviously, for this entertainment purpose. But what about those community members? I mean, one of the things that has been leveled at you, and they're not wrong for leveling it at you, and it's not a question that shouldn't be answered. You had a community that you suddenly put behind a paywall. They'd done a lot of work, and a lot of that community, which is Brood, they are now still doing that work, and it's starting to get traction now because of what's transpired. And now a particularly big YouTuber has got all of this, right? And he's going to be taking it on, and that's now going to get plenty of eyes. But that community did a whole bunch of work for you, and when it was put behind a paywall and stuff was deleted, that must not have felt very supporting to them, and it must have been a very bitter pill to swallow for them, who had been getting a ton of backlash because, of course, Bryan had, and credit where credit's due, he was able to amass a massive following. He's very good in equal measure on the flip side of the coin in creating a big following and getting people behind him, right? He's been able to run with this for so long because he's so good at it. But what about those people that were left behind, right? What about those people that had put all this energy into you and then suddenly found that energy wasn't coming back to them?
First of all, there's a problem in the premise of your question. They were not working for me. They were working with me. So this was a symbiotic relationship. And I would challenge anyone in Brood DeFi right now if they believe what I'm saying is inaccurate. So here's the deal, right? You can have a Discord and put a bunch of research and expose the research on that Discord. But how many eyeballs do you want to see that research? That's number one. How do you package the research so that it's digestible to the masses? Do you care about the masses? Because maybe you want your research to be for the 4 nerds that understand it. Or maybe you want it to be more digestible for the normies, which don't read blockchain, which don't understand Solidity code, right? In which case you're starting to need someone to market your research, right? So who are the people who are professionals in marketing? Well, that's YouTubers. So if someone is a professional researcher, because they're able to deep dive on the blockchain, look at the code, look at the transactions, and show the patterns. Okay, great. So that's your specialty. Understood. Now, my specialty is to come in front of this camera and do what I do. So if the research and myself, we work together and form a symbiotic relationship to expose a common enemy, now this is starting to get somewhere, aka exactly what CoffeeZilla is doing on a much bigger level. So the reality is the ecosystem is a mosaic of people and they need to work together. Now, here's the thing. The more important question is my big pivot. Why did it happen in the first place? Well, from my experience in life, if you want to be excellent, if you want to be elite at something, don't try to do 2 things. Do one thing. It's the only way to reach elite status at that thing. So if we started as, because my videos were exposing all these scam projects, it's only natural when I opened the Discord, which, by the way, I did not open a Discord when I dropped my first video. I opened the Discord way later in my channel's career. So when I opened the Discord, it's only natural that the people that showed up wanted to either consume more research, do follow-up on the research, or do the research themselves. Okay, so that was the ambiance inside of the OnChain Discord. Mm-hmm. So we were going in that direction. They were doing the research for everyone in there, including myself, with the understanding that I would then go and present it to YouTube. That's what I'm calling the symbiotic relationship, right? But as I'm evolving as a YouTuber, because remember, I came here to build businesses in the virtual world, right? YouTube is the entry point in terms of marketing and education. By the way, I've said this very openly. The reason why I started to make content the way I make it on my channel right now is because I too got scammed in DeFi. And it's when I got scammed, I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Let me make 2 things at once, aka educating myself about how I got scammed while exposing those types of people who scam me. Because if you can scam me, because I'm pretty clever, if you can scam me, bro, you can scam a lot of people. So that's the way I saw it at the time. So I was like, I need better education. I need more. So I went and did the deep dive inside of this area of DeFi and started exposing people. Anyway, fast forward to the point of realization for myself where I'm like, okay, the business model cannot be exposing bad actors in crypto. The reason for that is because there's a few problems. Number one, that's not why people are here. People are not in DeFi in order to find out who are the scammers. People are in DeFi for the hope of making it big. Take a small amount of money, turn it into a lot. Being early, being on the bleeding edge, that's why people come here. A byproduct of that is a lot of scammers like Bryan Legend, like the YouTubers who promote the Bryan Legend types. All of these people realize that there's a lot of eyeballs and attention and money trying to chase this opportunity. Therefore, they start selling shovels, or they start building the project themselves and create the scams. Okay, so perfect. Now, what is the optimal way to grow as a business person inside of a space like that? Is it just calling out the scammers without being able to impose any type of consequence because you have no enforcement arm? Or is the better strategy to actually go ahead and build a real project that respects the spirit of DeFi and just wins where all the other scammers are going to lose? I think the former was the better choice.
Your comments on it being a symbiotic relationship between the people that were in your Discord and yourself are spot on. I agree. And you were working together. And I understand why you have taken the arc that you've taken. But to circle back again to the community, one of the things that crops up time and time again is why delete all of that hard work? If you want to change a space for the better, if you want to create something that truly bucks the trend and you want to stick it in the faces of all of the scammers, would it not have been more powerful for you to have supported and helped that community, given everything that they needed by way of support, and then saying, I'm going to go and do my own thing, rather than just getting rid of anybody that kind of didn't want to pay for an NFT, they didn't want to sit behind that paywall because they were no longer useful anymore? Because to my mind, that's how it comes across. And I can understand, the more I've started to learn about what transpired, I understand Brood's defensiveness. I can understand the mindset, and I understand why they came in to our space, for example, or any other space they went into, and were particularly defensive, especially around that time, because they bought your ethos, right?
Sorry, let me interrupt you just for a quick second. So as you were talking, what I did is I went inside of my Discord and I opened up the Seifu channel to show people in real time that I never deleted a single comment or research or anything of that nature. It is well archived inside of my channel, my Discord channel. So the concept of Oliver deleted everyone's research is simply false. That's just a false narrative. It's not true.
Okay, fine.
It's a lie.
In which case, let me restate. Let me rephrase. Putting it behind a paywall and making it something that they then now had to access through funds can be equally alarming to them, and it will make you feel that you've been left behind, right? It's as if the person no longer cares about what you guys were creating. So why not hand over all of that information to them, help them set up a Discord, give them, way back when, before you took the time to build out what you're building out, give them all of the means that they needed to catapult themselves forward, and then say to them, it's now your chance and your turn to take this on. If you want to have somebody, and I've seen you in their Discord say, and I don't disagree with it, that they need a spokesperson that comes forward, maybe say to them, I'll take someone under my wing, I'll teach them what I've been doing. You guys should have someone who's willing to do what I'm doing, because I'm going in a different direction, but I'm still here for the original plan that we had in place, and I'm still here for why you guys bought into me in the first place, because let's face it, they bought into you, they followed you. So let me support that. I'm sure you can appreciate that was very difficult for them to take on. And to an extent, I guess, have you ever said to them, look, I apologize, that perhaps wasn't the best move. I could have rethought my actions back then. I should have perhaps taken a different route. And actually, I owe you an apology. It doesn't mean you have to regret where you are now. It doesn't mean you have to regret what it is that you're doing at the moment. It doesn't mean you have to regret any of the content that you've created. But I think certainly leaving people behind that entrusted their time and faith in you, and acknowledging that they feel hurt by that is a good step forward, wouldn't you say?
Okay, so I really appreciate the way you described the solution, right? So hypothetically, in your mind, you were like, okay, well, the solution would have been to help bootstrap the new Discord, take all of the information, put it over there, promote the Discord inside of the OnChain Discord, in order to help make sure that that work was respected and everyone that contributed to it did not feel like all of it went to zero, right? That's exactly what you just described, correct?
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly what happened. Because that's what's interesting, right? With how history is being written. People who have sentiments, negative or not so negative about me, but that don't do the actual research to know what took place, will just jump on the most convenient narrative that's out there. Because that's easy to do, it's pretty lazy, and it's fine. Like, that's part of the game. But the reality is this: now that we're having a real conversation, Now you're asking me the real things and you're getting real answers. Well, turns out, not only did I not erase the information in my Discord, what you just described is exactly what happened. I was like, guys, go ahead and copy everything that was inside of this channel, bring it to the new channel, share the link of the new server in this server, and then I will help everyone promote it. So I made an announcement. I shared it with everyone. It was there, like it was never erased. I never erased a single link of BroodFi. I told everyone, please go to BroodFi. This is where the investigation is going to take place now. From this point forward, we're going to move in the direction of building a project in DeFi, because I believe that is the ultimate solution to the problem we're facing. But having a watchdog in the space is extremely important, and I realize and recognize that I cannot be the watchdog center while becoming a founder at the same time, because I will not have the opportunity to become great at either of these things. Therefore, I have to choose a path. It's a fork in the road, but we're gonna do it the right way. And so even though people felt like they did not want to stop the relationship, they did not want me to go in that direction, and they were unhappy. But one thing that no one that was there for real can say is that I did not help promote, help do this the right way. That definitely is not possible to say about me. It's just impossible because it's not true. So go and get anyone who's in BroodFi that was in my Discord right now and ask them if for a single time, a single second, or a single sentence that I put out was against copying everything, taking it to the other Discord and help promote it.
Okay, and I'll take that pushback. Again, it's reasonable, and you're explaining yourself. What's fascinating about this conversation is it's probably going to be one of the few conversations that people see you not getting riled up, right? And that's because you're able to have a question leveled at you that's a reasonable one, and you're not dealing with, in your opinion, dummies, I suppose, right? That you're not dealing with people
low
that
IQ
just
people.
people that say things for the sake of saying things. But you know, there are still people that feel hurt about that. And what is your pushback to them when they say, well, you gated us out, you put it behind a paywall? And we're not going to keep getting stuck on this topic. It's just an interesting topic to dive into, because there's now a very big community that are also polarized in your returning into that community. Because on the one hand, there's some that will see absolute benefit in having you come back. On the other hand, there's a ton of people that have very long memories. They don't forget, and they are not wanting to let it go. And I just wonder, is there ever a point where you just say to them, look, guys, you know what? Hand on heart, if you felt that I didn't approach this the right way, I apologize. Let's draw a line under that. Let's move forward with fresh eyes.
All right. Sorry, my throat is bothering me.
No problem.
So I don't have a problem with apology, or apologizing. The thing that I don't like is, in the age of the internet, people make apologies like joke. Like, it's just a fucking joke. Like, did you think rationally before acting? If the answer to that question is yes, okay, are you sure? Can you demonstrate that your actions after you thought about them were wrong? And if you can demonstrate that, can you then have empathy and put yourself in the place of the person that is telling you that they're hurt by you? And then, do you believe that this requires an apology? And if such, if so, do you mean it? Right? All of that needs to be considered before you issue an apology, instead of being fucking Daniel Prado and come out here and say, oh guys, I didn't know what was happening, blah, blah, and then promote Vulcan. Dummy, bruv. Anyway, so here's my thing. I did the thing the right way. That's what's important to remember here. Like, I don't understand why I would go ahead and make an apology when all my behavior displayed like I was coherent and my behavior. What I decided to do was not a complete, crazy outcome based on someone like me who's in the space. And it's not like I just push people out with complete disregard for their work and their attention and whatever it like that community was doing at that time. I did it right in order to not have to apologize. Because if I botched the whole thing, then I would understand. If I did it the wrong way and snaked people, then I would understand. But if I'm a stand-up guy and I come to the community and I tell them, listen, guys, this is a fork in the road for me. I need to determine what my future is going to be in DeFi. And when it comes down to being an investigative watchdog community, when I compare that to becoming a founder, and because I believe I have the leadership skills to be able to bring something of value to DeFi, when I look at these two paths down the road, this fork in the road, I think the superior path is becoming a founder. So if that's what I believe, why would then I turn around and apologize for it? That would mean I have no spine. Now that being said,
let me interject for 2 seconds, because if you want to be a good leader, sometimes there's power in having empathy for others and how you've made them feel, regardless of the path you believe you were taking. And more often than not, an apology can speak 1,000 words.
So I agree with that, but here's the grain of salt in this, or asterisk. I can apologize for how I make someone feel, but I cannot apologize for a decision that was calculated by myself to determine the outcome of my future, right? So I cannot apologize for that action because it was a calculated action and I executed it the right way. So I cannot apologize for that. But if someone had their feelings hurt, and because now we are in the era of snowflakes and everyone is a fucking victim, so if what they need is for me to apologize for their sentiments, then I can do that all day. Okay, no problem. I feel very sorry that you felt like me doing things the right, like, you see, it's not even genuine. So why do it? Like, the thing is this, right? And people have to just stand on what they believe. If I believe that I can bring real value to DeFi and I don't want to botch it, and I don't want to do two things at once, and I'm choosing a clear path, okay? And that makes someone feel like, oh man, I wish Oliver didn't do that. Why would I need to apologize for how you feel? I cannot control your feelings. And it's okay to not be on the same page in terms of feelings, but do the facts make sense? Are people being honorable? Are they being respectful? Like, we just happen to be in the era of feelings, but feelings are secondary to honor, respect, responsibility. Those things I display in spades. So how come we're not focusing on that, which is superior to feelings, and now we have to bring it down to just basic feelings? Like, why?
It's a good question, and I think the answer lies somewhere in what we've already discussed, which is when you take a polarizing, some would say aggressive approach to how you tackle people, you're going to get that kind of energy back, whether you like it or not. You know, it's again, I will refer back to the conversations that I've had in particular with the people from Brood. They have made their feelings on me particularly clear. They don't like me, and they don't need to. That's okay. You don't have to like what I have to say. And I haven't always been able to keep my emotions in check during conversations, because it gets to a point where it just escalates to insults. And, you know, there are times when you've been live and it's escalated to insults. And I think sometimes when it gets to that stage and that's what you're putting out, it's probably what you're going to get back. And then it doesn't boil down to how you want to approach the space, what integrity you might have, what your plans are to do better for this space. It will always then just come back to those key moments where someone might feel triggered or you might feel they're a snowflake. But in the midst of all of that, there are also very serious comments that also come out. I mean, today alone, I've seen racial slurs leveled at us. I've had people say to myself from that particular Discord, they wish my kids would get run over and they can't wait to see it. I mean, these are not small things. This is not something that I would ever, you know what I mean?
No, they're pretty fucking small. Okay,
I mean, they're small in the grand scheme of life. Yes,
like it's like take
granted.
things with a grain of salt. This is the
Of
fucking
course.
internet. To just get out of your feelings, bro. Someone's talking about your kids. So fucking what? They don't matter in your life. So
And I agree
what,
with that.
bro?
You're spot on with
Alright.
that.
So here's the thing, right? It's like, why are we acting as if this is not TV? Like, this is TV, bro. The internet.
Creating a protocol is not TV though. That's dealing with
No.
people's money.
See, that's where you get into the realm of results. So you see, if you step away from emotions, the thing that matters becomes the results, the facts. So if I am I'm becoming the founder, right, of a project, what you're gonna judge me on is not the key. You said it would always come back to the key moments of insult and stuff. That I completely disagree. The insults will completely fade in history. The thing that's gonna stay in legacy is going to be the results, right? By the time it's all said and done, if things happen the way I anticipate them to happen, people will just remember me as, oh yeah, he's polarizing and entertaining, but yo, that app though. So that needs to be the conclusion. If I cannot deliver a product that is superior enough to completely eclipse all of the antics, then I just failed. And here's the thing. I'm a winner. I know how to fucking win, right? So contrary to these snowflakes out here, yes, I'm talking to you, you dummies. If you don't know how to win, of course you're gonna be in your feelings all day, every day. But just because I do this and I entice these feelings to come out of you, and then I turn around and tell you it's part of a trick, it's an attention hack. I tell you the play, but you still cannot go above it. That just proves how much of a dummy you are. But then in the end, what you're gonna have to judge me on is my result. The results are here to see. Like, it's been 8 months since I launched my token. You look at the chart, right? If it was a rug, if it was a shitcoin, it would have gone below zero, but it's not. And then you still have key members in my community who are still right here with me, waiting for me to deliver the proof of concept of the application. And before that proof of concept is here, I'm not even talking about marketing. Because if you're gonna market a token, you're nothing. Bring a real utility, bring an application, and not just any application, something that can beat Web 2. If it cannot beat Web 2, it should not exist on Web 3. So that's just the reality, man. There's levels to this shit. There's levels to this game.
It's a reasonable pushback. I don't disagree with a lot of what you're saying. I don't necessarily agree entirely with the approach. I do understand and agree that if you are telegraphing to someone what it is that you are doing and they're still not able to look past that, fine. There are, however, people that are going to take things to heart and are going to invest emotionally. They're going to dump bags emotionally. They might want somewhere to vent. The way you clean up this space is by having reasonable, meaningful conversations that don't descend into total chaos. And I just think that if you're someone who understands the game as well as you do, and you understand your position within the space, every now and again to break the fourth wall and jump out of that character, go into a space like you're doing now and have a real conversation with someone and be a bit more meaningful in your approach when you're having this one-on-one like we are now. I think that gives people the insight into what you're doing and educates them even further. And let's face it,
which is why I'm doing it.
As in having this conversation or doing everything that you're doing?
No, having this conversation. Like I said, I don't do anything by chance or by mistake. I knew exactly what was going to happen from this conversation. And I telegraphed it too. I said in your Discord that it was going to be a high IQ conversation. That's exactly what's happening. I throw a little hint of like dummy and this and that in there just to stay on brand. But the result is a high IQ conversation.
Yeah, I don't disagree. The persona that you are now is a polar opposite to the one that you display, and you're able to offer perfectly reasonable and digestible arguments as to why you display that persona. Here's a question. Would you be as big as you are now or as notorious as you are now in this space without Bryan Legend?
Probably not, because in every story, you need a good guy, a bad guy, and a guy that, like me. So, depending on where you stand, and this is the beautiful thing about storytelling, because this is ultimately the reason why I knew I could be great on YouTube. Like, even though I remember at some point that this is a little thing, like, to stroke my ego in public, because I am a narcissist, just in case you guys are not sure about it. People who get in front of cameras are narcissistic by nature, like, no, duh, dummies. Anyway, so at some point I'm talking to another YouTuber in the space. And at the time he had like 70,000 subscribers. And I had like, I don't know, maybe 3,000 subscribers. And we're having a conversation in private because we're trying to see if we could set up some kind of interview, do a back and forth. In the end, he was like, oh, I don't want the drama. I can't do it. Let's just pass on it. But during that conversation, I told him, like, people don't even understand what's really happening on YouTube. People don't really understand the depths of the game. I'm like, I have a lower subscriber count than many people who started YouTube before me, but I'm a much bigger YouTuber than them, and they don't even understand it's happening, right? Because the gravitational pull around my content makes me just eclipse people that are in my weight class. So they seem to be in my weight class, but they're not. And it really comes down to to what level do you understand the marketing that's happening on YouTube? Because it is marketing. And when I was talking yesterday or 2 days ago in that live stream, I was telling the reformed Seifu shills that the thing that surprises people when I get into these conversations and they sit down and listen, they realize, or they're forced to realize, or maybe even surprised to realize, that I have a lot of range in my ability to go up and down as a character, right? So if you thought all I was yelling into the camera, then you just have to admit that you were wrong. Like, I actually have the ability to go way up in the intellectual totem pole and have a higher level conversation. And then when you listen to the things I'm saying and how organized my words are, then you start to realize, oh, this guy actually knows what he's doing. And then you consider, okay, if I know what I'm doing and I'm using YouTube to the level where I can go and get reactions from the lowest IQ people, and then I can turn around and have conversations with the highest IQ people, and then I obviously have the charisma that it takes to perform in front of a camera. And now I was also the guy who was able to call out all of the scams that both low IQ and high IQ people fell for. And I did not fall for it. Not just that, I was telling everyone that was willing to listen that you are going to lose your money before it was popular. So now you have to start asking, you start to have to ask yourself the question, what happens when I then say, I don't lose, I'm not a loser, I know how to win, and now I'm building a project which I intend to make one of the best in DeFi. Do you really want to bet against me? Question.
It's an interesting question because there are a lot of factors that will come into play. You're obviously smart. I don't think that's up for debate. And you are obviously able to conduct yourself in a variety of different ways that will garner interest to those that you want to garner interest from, and then have, as you say, a higher level conversation with those you want to have a higher level conversation with. I wonder whether or not people might feel that if you have left them in your wake, that the lack of support can start to outweigh the support. And as dogged and determined as you might be, you are eventually going to need the support of those around you in order to be successful. Because without that, without people wanting to stand behind you, it can't be a success. So when do you then pivot to try and garner that support?
Again, the proof will be in the pudding. The beautiful thing about DeFi that maybe most people don't even realize is that for the first time in history, you're able to have capital markets that are baked in inside of products that you're bringing to the marketplace, right? So you have liquid markets that are coupled with ideas, which then can become application that are instantly liquid. Like in the past, in the world of Web 2, you had to develop an idea and an application for 10 years, like a full decade, before going public and making it liquid and going to the capital markets. Now with DeFi, we are on the bleeding edge of this, which is why you have the Bryan Legends of this world. But I already know, and I've said that since last year, the next Google is gonna come from this space. And the thing is, it's gonna be liquid from day one. It's gonna have an integrated capital market from day one. These are not small things. These are massive innovations. And in the era of TikTok, of like virtual attention, right? You need to find ways to cut through the noise. Someone like me knows how to do that. But that's not the only thing I know how to do. What I just expressed about the difference in Web 2 and Web 3, that right there is already something new that most people never even heard before in the space. So by the time I go and reach where I am at now, where I have a few guys around me that understand what I'm doing and are willing to support me, now we have a development team. Like, wait a minute. So now this guy who was just supposed to be the guy yelling on YouTube, he now has a dev team that's following his vision and executing it. And now very soon, which is why I'm doing these things now, this week, I'm gonna drop the proof of concept for the application. So once you start having things that are undeniable, like you cannot pretend that the application is real, like it's not real. You cannot pretend, right? And then by the time you use it, you'll have to compare it to the alternative. 99% of the things that you can compare it with out here are just shit coins that were constructed in less than like 5 minutes. That's my competition. I took 7 months just to build the proof of concept. Come on, bro. Like, again, there's levels to this shit. These dudes are not on my level. But, you know, you can either front run the fact that I know how to fucking win, or you can wait and jump in later. But either way, what's gonna happen is gonna happen. The bar is very low. That's just fascinating to me. But the bar here and DeFi is extremely low. It's not hard to go over it. So,
yeah, I hear, you know, your body of work and the quality of your work is what you're saying is going to stand out. And once people see what you are creating, it is your belief that they're going to want to and have to stand behind it because it's going to be so strong of work. To digress for a second.
Sorry, before you digress,
please.
They don't have to. You can wait for FRP to go to like $5 and FOMO in at that point like a dummy. But definitely you do not have to, because you have a bunch of choices on the market. Go to the other shitcoin that offers no utility, that has no product, no application, just a promise of buying this token, holding it, waiting for more tokens down the road, aka a Ponzi scheme, and just repeat the same behavior, expect a different outcome like an insane dummy snowflake. Like, if that's what you want to do, cool, no problem. You can go do that. But if you want a different path in DeFi, it happens through people like me, and that's a fact. So
they don't have to, but they're a dummy snowflake if they don't recognize what you're creating. I mean, it's all in the wording, right? And I appreciate the direction you're taking with that, but it's you know, that's effectively what you're saying is, you know, you don't have to, of course, no one's going to hold you at gunpoint, but it's advisable to because of what you're creating. To digress for a second, how does it feel to have created the most memorable moment in DeFi? Which I've just pinged in the stage questions.
Big shout out to my man's little wee wee. You hear? No, that was a moment, like that was a classic right there. Instant classic. Bryan Legend, like the fucking dummy that he is, talks about his dick on live stream in 4K, talking about whipping it out. What the actual fuck? And here's the kicker. In that moment, all of the people in Seifu did not pause to say, this guy is actually fucking insane. Like, how, Sway? How?
You know, I was a Seifu investor, and I was one of those people that was very vocal positively for Seifu in the early days. And then I started to learn slowly that that was not the case, and far slower than I should have, frankly. And then when we created this space, I always like to have a discussion and a conversation from the counterpoint, because I think when you're arguing a counterpoint, that's where you can get the most interesting information. It's hard for me to completely slam them as dummies. It's hard for me to want to completely go for the jugular with them, because I was them at one point. And, how is because you get sucked in. You can become emotional. You want to, of course, protect your investment. There's an element of not wanting to believe you've had the rug pulled over your eyes. And then there are just some people who were in on the game from the get-go, and that's why they stuck around with it for as long as they did, right?
Of course.
When it comes to Bryan Legend, obviously the next step is people want to make sure that he's going to have some accountability for his actions. There is that group Brood that is doing exactly that. They're collating evidence for that, and they're saying that they're willing to work with you. But they might need something from you in terms of how you work with them. And I can completely appreciate your position and why you say you do what you do. Are you willing to meet them in the middle in that respect, to work towards getting Bryan Legend? You've made some suggestions. You've made some suggestions that CoffeeZilla perhaps raises funds to take him to court. I think that was one of those suggestions that you made, and I think it's a reasonable suggestion. Are you willing to work with them in the way they want you to work with them, and not just the path and the way you work?
Well, we would have to define what that means, right? Because here's the thing. I'm not asking the people from BroodFi to change. I'm saying be exactly who you are. And this is how I think it can be useful. And in fact, they already know how it can be useful. They don't have to change. I know how I can be useful. I don't see why I would have to change, but I would be open to having a dialogue. I'm always open to have a conversation. So when I say, every chance I get, I say about this Bryan Legend topic, the path forward is very clear. And if it's not taken, this thing will fade away faster than you guys think. It's gonna fade away. Now, I have 100% accuracy in these calls, right? So I don't think I'm gonna fail on my accuracy right now on this call. So I'm gonna be very on the record here and say, listen carefully to what I'm about to say. Within the next 6 months, everyone will forget about Seifu if no one raise a single dollar to go after Bryan Legend in a real way. I'm gonna say this again. Everyone will forget about Seifu and Bryan Legend if not a single dollar is raised to go after him in the real world. Okay, now you're gonna have to sit on that for a second and think about what reality you want to live in. Do you want to live in a reality where the most memorable thing that happened regarding Bryan Legend to keep his name alive was the fact that he said he would take out his penis on live stream? Or do you want the most memorable thing for him to be in handcuffs? Which reality do you want to live in? We already created the first moment. If we do not organize people around putting their hard-earned money finally to do something smart regarding this character, Bryan Legend, it's gonna fade in history and it's gonna be forgotten. Now, here's the thing, and I also said this to BroodFi. I live in the future because that's my job as a visionary, as a leader. I have to front run the pack, right? So when I decided to create a project as the ultimate move to counter all of the scams in DeFi is because I anticipated that the investigation with no enforcement is a tiger with no fangs. And that's too low impact for someone of my value. So I have to go to the highest impact environment in order for me to feel like I'm doing something worthwhile in this world. So that's why I went towards, okay, I'm going to beat them with success instead of beating them with research with no enforcement. But we have reached the pinnacle of DeFi scams with Bryan Legend finally being the last domino to fall. And in that very moment, this is the catalyst to see if decentralized finance, the DeFi world, can come together, put their funds, put their money where their anger or is, right? Put the money there, leverage the biggest other of all time in CoffeeZilla, leverage him, leverage the attention he's bringing to Bryan Legend, organize yourselves, and raise the money and go after him. Now, you cannot arrest him yourself, but I said clearly in a text shared inside of BroodFi, here's a strategy of how you do this. First, you hire people, lawyers, accountants, investigators, right? You need to have enough money to do that. And then you galvanize the troops, all of the beehive inside of DeFi. These are the people who will keep the thing alive. And then you have the influencers, which once they see that the people are organized, will have an incentive to cover the story because they are self-interested just like you are. Now, once you have this mosaic of people that are all targeting at least one person to make an example out of them, which is Bryan Legend, you will get the result that is desired because mainstream media, once they see this pressure and organization being, brewing from the grassroots, they will give it attention. 60 Minutes Australia is a very easy one to get because it's a financial crime. They will get all over it if we are effectively organized. Once you do that, the other medias will jump on. And then you can pressure the authorities, show them that you've done their work for them, serve the work on a silver platter, and just aim this fucking bazooka at his fucking head. That's how you get it done.
There's a lot to unpack there. I'm going to push back on one thing first. You did confess to being scammed at the beginning of your journey, so I would say you're 99% right on all of your calls. Would that be fair?
But that was before I started my channel.
You're mobilizing and taking him on and raising funds is not a bad idea. I think exactly the same way as you do in that respect. And I think that also has to start from a place of people putting aside whatever feelings they might have for others to remember whom it is that they're angry with in the first place. Which of the people, they want to actually go after, because the infighting that happens and there's a gang mentality that happens that, if you're not in my gang, I can't be in yours and we can't be friends. And, we're going to have to meet each other at dawn with pitchforks, fight it out and then go separate ways. I don't think that's helpful. It's interesting that you say to leverage CoffeeZilla. His approach, everybody should take note of. It's to come in, it's to be very quiet, ask the key questions he needs to ask, speak to people privately, then go away to create his content. Because that's where he understands the value is, not getting into the back and forths with people, not having the dialogue that a lot of us have been guilty of doing, but focusing your efforts on the goal that you want to achieve. So I agree with you. The mobilization is key, and raising funds will get people a ton of places if they do it right.
So here's the thing, right? And again, the advantage that you have with someone like me is I'm not shy about saying things exactly as they are. Like, I know exactly who CoffeeZilla is. He's an influencer, right? So he makes content. So he's not a revolutionary. He's not law enforcement. He's not your friend. He's not your fucking buddy. He doesn't care about you personally. He's an influencer, so he's making content. Now, two things can be true at once, just like I've said for myself. Like, I make content on YouTube primarily for views because I did not have to be on YouTube. But two things can be true at once. So CoffeeZilla can also make content for views while he's exposing scammers. These two things are true at the same time. Now, here's the thing. If the community understands that they at least have an inside track to CoffeeZilla and his crazy amount of clout, well, the only way to interface with him is to be organized. If we cannot even get organized, that means everyone here is a bunch of fucking dummies. So why the fuck would he waste his time with a bunch of dummies. So if you cannot be angry enough, because this is really what it comes down to. It's like, as men, you need to be actually angry. You need to have a backbone. And this is why I say honor, respect, and duty are superior to feelings. I don't give a fuck about your feelings. Do you have honor? Do you have a backbone? Are you a man? So if you are, then maybe we can have a conversation. So at that point, maybe there's a chance to organize. But if you cannot even fucking get organized after someone, you know, R-worded your portfolio, like, really, bro, it's like, what, like, you're a dummy. You're a brokey, Bugatti. God damn, bro.
You own being an asshole. I'll give you that. You accept that that's your role to play here, and it works for you. So that's, you know, it's obviously commendable that you can stand behind that with 100% conviction. When I
say things, hold on. When I say things beyond just the, you know, entertainment value, you see the inherent value in what I'm saying. Like, how many people are proposing call to actions that are actionable things that we can execute with a high probability of success? Where are the leaders who can deliver on coherent messages that has a high probability of success? And that's the difference between me and the rest. Someone can be some dork in a basement and go and analyze the blockchain for days. But here's the thing, you're not a leader. You don't have the ability to have charisma and come out here, put yourself out there on a camera, right? And when someone puts a mic in front of you and you come on a Discord and hide your face and talk, the question is, are you saying things that people can action that with a high probability of success? Well, turns out, if you take the time to go beyond the intakes, you realize that I'm checking all these boxes. And if you believe I'm not, just come challenge me. Let's see how long you last. I mean, you got all these feelings, right? So come here and talk to me and see, you know, in the end, in the court of public opinion, who's the superior mind? Because this is not just a show. I mean, I can back it up. What's up?
Being a superior mind also means being self-aware. So in light of you obviously being self-aware, what mistakes have you made in this space that in hindsight you wish you had done differently?
The first thing that comes to mind is the fact that I lost 25K before I started my channel, which was the motivation to start my channel. Now, that's the most pain that I felt, and I felt more pain from the confidence I had and then being wrong versus losing the money, which actually correlates perfectly with the reason why people cannot get out of cult mentality even when they are high IQ. So you're pretty high IQ, but you were inside of a cult and you got scammed just like every other dummy. But, you know, shit, that thing is like, it warps your reality, right? Reality falls on the edges around you, and you cannot really see clearly anymore. And your IQ goes down to 0, and then you become like, you revert back to being a dummy, right? So when I realized that in that moment, I was a dummy, bro, you don't understand. Like, this is the thing, like why I'm talking, I'm trying to like gauge to see if there are any men around in DeFi. Like, for me, this is an affront to my lineage, to my whole people. Like, how the fuck do I get scammed? So now I have to go extra deep. I have to be in the gym extra time, in the psychological gym, like figuring it out. So that's how my accuracy became 100%. This doesn't happen by mistake. You have to go in the lab, be fucking appalled by the fact that you got scammed by these fucking invisible people and wanting to do something about it. I'm definitely doing something about it. The question is, what are you guys doing? The viewers, the listeners, what are you doing? How come you're not mad? How mad are you? Are you just mad enough to jump on a keyboard? Or do you want to go get somebody? That's my question, bro.
Now, if we dial into then your YouTube and after you got scammed, are you suggesting there have never been mistakes during those videos or the approach to those videos? Maybe you've interviewed somebody you shouldn't have interviewed or covered something you shouldn't have covered in the way that you've done it. There must be times where you go back once the camera's off, you're self-reflecting, you're having a conversation with a friend or yourself where you say, yeah, I shouldn't perhaps have gone in that direction. That was maybe pushing the line a bit too far. Or, I've perhaps burnt a bridge with this person, or I've, burnt a bridge with that friend because I'm so determined to get from where I am here at A to Z, in this perfect fashion. There must be something in there that you reflect on and think, I wish I'd done that slightly differently.
The answer is no. And although the question, the way you phrased it, right, opens itself to a easy, oh yeah, there's this time, there's this one thing. It's fucking irrelevant. The little thing is irrelevant. The body of work is what matters, right? So if there is something, maybe if you bring it to me, I'll think about it. The way I approach life is I make sure to be a net positive. That's the reality, right? That's what stays. That's what creates legacy. Are you a net positive to the world? So I don't have in memory some little thing maybe that was a little bit above the line or far above the... Really, bro, it doesn't matter. My net is positive, and that much is clear for everyone to see in this public forum. And if someone wants to argue that I am a net negative, please come and build the argument and put it to the test and see how long you can make it stand. And if it crumbles on itself and melts away like a fucking snowflake, then you know what reality is telling you. Because your emotions are not reality. Your feelings are not fucking facts, right? So as long as I'm a net positive to the people I contribute content, entertainment, ideas, vision, products to, then I'm good.
Okay, let me offer a pushback.
All right, let's do it.
Or an example. The interview of Bryan Legend's family, in my opinion, that goes too far. Not because it isn't going to be great content, I get that. It's cheap content for me. It's
Okay.
low-hanging fruit.
Okay.
You could have aimed far, far higher.
Okay,
And
so
go on.
All right, so let's dissect that. All right, so here's what we're gonna have to do, right? We have on the one side Bryan's family low-hanging fruit content for OnChain. Okay. On the other side, we have $40 million on the line. So we're trying to get people to save $40 million as an aggregate inside of DeFi. Now, I would argue you need to throw everything at this, bro, because $40 million is a lot of money. So if this is not working, try that. If that is not working, try this. Throw everything at the fucking wall, see what sticks in order to save people from mayhem. Now, here's the thing, and this is why, again, I go to the net negative or net positive. Let me ask you this. If the only way to save the 40 million was when people saw that the people that educated and raised Bryan came to a public forum and said to the world, please do not trust this man. He has always been a scammer. He is scamming you right now. Step away from him as soon as possible. In fact, if you could put him in prison for his criminal activities, that would be optimal. If that was the way to save people from $40 million, would you stand on the high moral horse and be like, you know what, bro? That's too low of a hanging fruit. Let's not go there. Because, to fight Bryan, this fucking scumbag of a criminal, let's not use every tool in the toolbox. Is that how you feel?
But did it save those 40 million people?
But did you know beforehand it wouldn't?
No, of course not. And if it's
exactly.
a case
So
of
now, but answer the question.
if the argument is trial and error, then I can accept that argument.
Of
If that's
course
the
it is
argument,
trial and error. I'm dealing with a cult. It is trial and error. We are dealing with a cult. I need to snap people into reality, right? I need to free their minds from the fucking Bryan Legend matrix. So I'm trying to get the people who educated the guy, who are telling you about his first scam when he was like 13 years old, and you still cannot snap out, bruv. I mean, I'm literally just building the body of work and trying to save you. But hey, you want to hate me instead? That's cool, no problem. Yeah, no worries. Yeah. It's all good.
I think it's come around perfectly full circle. And I don't see any questions that are being thrown into the stage questions. So I'll wind it down. I think it brings us back to the first points that we raised, which is that without you both, neither of you would have been as big as the other, I think. And that's a really interesting dichotomy to look at and digest and unpack. And it's really fascinating to look at how you both played a part in one another's success. And of course, the undoing for him was that ultimately, at the end of the day, he was doing things that were, you know, very illegal at times, in terms of, if you were to put it into a real world business, this space is unregulated. But he was certainly pulling the wool over people's eyes in a way that was, I'm trying to get my words out correctly. He wasn't just scamming people, he was eroding away at people's trust. And like you said, it's the final domino to fall of someone who can create that big a business in this space. And hopefully people are going to learn from it. But I think the aftermath is going to be felt for some time. And I'm sure you'd agree with that.
Yes. And it's really unfortunate that now you just made this man $30+ million richer, and people cannot seem to get themselves in order and build an offensive against him, right? When I look at the response that I'm getting from giving people what arguably is the best way forward to keep the traction going and getting a consequence imposed on Bryan, when I look at the response I'm getting, it's very disappointing. It's extremely disappointing, because then I start to question humanity. I'm like, wait a minute. This is supposed to be a microcosm of humanity, right? Are we in such doom days where no men are anywhere to be found? Like, no more backbones are left. There's nothing. It's just mainstream media and bug sandwiches. That's all that's around. It's like, is it really where we've reached in 2023? It's like no one has the capacity to organize and structure the anger from being R-worded by Bryan Legend and put an offensive together. Like, it's just, it can't be done. This is what I'm witnessing right now. Like, you tell these people, all of these fucking influencers that are now trying to rescue their reputation, right? They're all trying to be like, oh, well, you know, Bryan Legend is bad. I will never, I promise I did not have sex with this woman. It's fucking pathetic. It's fucking pathetic, right? And it's like, okay, then you tell them, listen, guys, you already lost your money. You already caused all these people to follow the cult leader. You promoted the cult. You promoted this Seifu garbage. Now, why don't you go ahead and do the real hard thing, which is organize them by putting your money on the line first to show some level of fucking leadership. Put your money on the line, inspire people to put money on the line to actually go after Bryan. Once you tell them that, it's like, like they cannot form sentences suddenly. And even if I extrapolate this to BroodFi, when I tell them about this, a couple of people are like, yeah, you know, it makes sense, etc. And I tell them very specifically, your leadership needs to make this happen. And then once they do organize and open the fund and put their money where their mouth and their anger is at, Then they need to go to CoffeeZilla and make an organized proposition. Only then will you have a chance. Well, if there's traction for that idea in BroodFi, I didn't see it yet. So maybe it will happen, but I'm telling you so far, it's not looking good. As a result, big take, big prediction from myself, 100% accuracy guy. 6 months from now, no one will remember this shit. Now what?
Yeah, I think action is needed. I think people do need to step up and take action. And I hope to see it too. And, you know, I'd like to see you be at the front of that in terms of your guidance. And if you and Brood are able to put whatever small differences you have aside and have dialogue, there's plenty of things that they can take away from you. And I think that would certainly be a very good starting point to go after Bryan in the way that is absolutely necessary. And it would put a real stamp on this space in terms of A, self-policing in a way, and B, to say to scammers that are operating here and people that do want to pull the wool over people's eyes and take their money, that it isn't going to be tolerated anymore. You know,
we need to make an example. We need to make an example out of someone. And Bryan Legend, oh my God, that fucking bald-headed dummy is the perfect candidate to be made an example out of. If we slip, if we let this chance go by, every tiny micro Bryan Legends that are brewing right now, that are preparing right now, and again, I'll tell you the truth straight to your face. That's the advantage that you get with me. If you guys cannot do this and go after Bryan Legend and set an example, set a precedent, you will be broadcasting an effect. You will be broadcasting a very loud message to the world that you guys are a bunch of fat preys that are grazing inside of DeFi for them to come and just feast on you. Literally, this is the imagery that you need to imprint in your mind to form a spine to go and do this shit. If you fail, you are a dummy for life. You will be fed on by predators for the rest of your life. As an aggregate, this is what is at stake here. If you do not understand this, then bro, there's no hope. There's no hope. I'm just gonna tell you straight.
Yeah, again, I'll say it for the last time, hopefully. I don't disagree. It's, you know, if people are listening beyond the character, then you are giving perfectly reasonable sound bites of what people should be doing as a next stage. And if they do take this, you know, by the balls and they really do run with this, an example can be made. And I think that's the best thing for this space. And if anything else, hopefully other spaces, you know, even ourselves here have learned lessons from it. We need to ask tougher questions during Q&As. If we're doing them with protocols, we need to dive a little bit deeper. We need to do a bit more due diligence. We need to not dismiss someone's thoughts quite as quickly as we might at times, because if we continue to try and take these lessons away as well, then the more and more people that come into the space that are circling in our communities are educated, the better a decision they can make, and you know, people can start with the real innovation of the space rather than, you know, running after these, as you said at the very beginning, get rich quick schemes. Oliver, it's been an hour and a half. I appreciate you coming in. It's been a very fascinating conversation for me. Thank you very much for your time. And hopefully somewhere down the line we can do it again.
Absolutely, man. So thank you for having me. And hopefully there was a soundbite in there that will transform a snowflake into a man. And maybe, just maybe, we get a shot at this. If not, I'll continue to do what I do. I will build a successful project, and then you can FOMO into it later. It's all good.
Okay, you take care, my man.
All right, peace out.